Yeah, welcome back. So in the previous presentation, we were discussing about the I/O processing, right? In which we started with the remote connections, how the remote connections can be established in our PLC. Then after that, we have seen the communication standards, the serial and parallel communication standards. So how the serial communication can be achieved in our PLC scenario. What are the general types of the serial communication methodologies that we use in our PLC, and followed by that we have seen the parallel communication standards. So the one which is right in front of your screen now, that is IEEE 488 bus structure. Some of the technicalities behind this we have already seen, right, in our previous presentation. And after that we have also seen in our network standards like what are the different type of topologies that we use in our PLC scenario. The star topology, where you have one host and multiple devices connected to this, and the bus or single highway system, where the high speed or dedicated lines carry the information to the different terminals from the host, right? Then you have got the ring system, right, wherein in the ring system you have nothing like a host or device. All are connected to each other. Each type has got its own significance and of course its own drawbacks or the limitations also. The different PLC manufacturers make use of the different type of the network topologies, right? So this is what we have seen in the previous class. And after that when we discussed about the network standards, right, I had made a mention about the open system interconnection, right, OSI, which is the standard protocol for your communication, even including your internet, and how exactly this OSI layers are conceived. You have the physical layer here, right? You have got the physical layer, then you have got the data link layer. What exactly happens in the physical layer I have already explained, right? So basic gathering of the information maybe from the sensors or something like that. Then the consolidation of the information or the enrichment of the informations that take place in your data link layer. Then the same is passed on to the network layer, wherein the network layer is the third higher layer. Then it goes to the transportation layer, right? We have already seen what exactly the transportation layer does. It defines the protocols which are responsible for sending messages from one end of the network to the other. Basically it is for the purpose of controlling the message flow. Then it goes to the session layer, right? In the session layer, basically it performs the functions of setting up the communication between the different users, right? Session. Then comes the presentation, right? As long as the presentation layer is concerned, the layer assures the information whether it is delivered or not, right, in an understandable form, as long as the session layer is the presentation layer is concerned. Finally you come to the application layer, right? So once if you come to the application layer, basically it is having the function of linking the user programs into the communication process, right? And it is concerned with the methods of transmitting the information. This application layer happens to be the highest layer, right? Now suppose if you want the communications to be taking place, right? So now you have the 7 layers here, something like that, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this corresponds to one particular system, right? Then you may have one more system here, right? You have physical layer, data link, 4, 5, 6, 7. This corresponds to another system, right? You may have the communication here between these. You can have between these two, or you can have between these two, right? Or you can have between these two, or you may have the communication in this way. You go to the application layer of one, then you pass on the information to the application layer of the another, then you come to the physical layer of the next the device, right? So depending upon the requirement, the communications take place here, right? Either between these two layers, or it may be between these two layers, or it may be between these two layers, or you can have the communication established for the entire 7 layers, and again at the receiver it may come in this particular direction. And of course, in order to establish the communication between the different parts here, right, so the different protocols are required to be understood, right. You have got the network gateways, something called as the gateway. You must have heard about these things. Okay, then you have to follow certain important protocols. Protocols basically define the set of rules for the purpose of establishing the communication in a particular layer. So your physical layer protocols may be different, your data link layer protocols may be different, or your session, presentation, application layer protocols may be different, right. So now when we have the open system interconnection, so this serves as the basic model for establishing the communication in all the communication scenario, but depending upon the requirement, these models are modified, right. So you may have the communication in your PLC system, right. You may have the communication only in the internet system. For that you use your TCP IP. This also you must have heard about, the transmission control protocol and internet protocol. That is for the purpose of the communication in the internet layer, right. So you may have the communication technologies used in the physical layer, data link layer, so on and so forth, right. Now what we are interested here is basically we want to have the application of this OSI layer in our PLC system, right. So basically this OSI, open system interconnection, is required in our PLC system, right. So there are several systems that have been devised keeping this OSI as the back end, right. So again in your PLC we had something called as MAP, right. There was one system long back it was conceived, right. This is called as manufacturing automation protocol, right. This is called as the manufacturing automation protocol. The very name itself indicates, right. So what exactly this is intended to, right. It is basically for the purpose of the manufacturing, which is automated, and once the manufacturing process is automated, you will have to follow certain protocols, right, between the different layers. So how exactly you will be able to establish the communication between the different things, right. Maybe it may be too early for me to take up this MAP in a larger sense, but I can definitely tell you that we have got say 7 layers. One is physical, data link, network, right. Then the transportation layer, session layer, then you have the the presentation layer, then finally you have got the application layer. You start from the physical layer, you go to up to application layer, right. So this is basically for the OSI system. It is the OSI system. Now this OSI system we have to convert as per the requirements to be used in a PLC system, which I am referring to it as the MAP, manufacturing automation protocol, right. So basically maybe in your physical layer you may have some coaxial cables which we have mentioned earlier, right. You may have some radio frequency modules, you may have some kind of sensors, right, which are basically going to collect the raw data, right, measured from some sensor or something like that, right. Then you may have some broadband system, IEEE, that is 802.4, right. So this 802, IEEE 802 is a larger umbrella for all these communication protocols, right. Again in this 802 you have different subsets, okay. One may be for Wi-Fi, another may be for your ISDN, another may be for your TCP IP. So for different things you may have subsets. What exactly you will have to follow there, it is very categorically and clearly written there. This is basically to reduce the incompatibility between the different devices that are manufactured from different manufacturers. Now let us say that I have got one manufacturer X and I have got one more manufacturer Y. So I need to establish the connection between this X and Y, right. So now if they are allowed to manufacture the items as per their discretions, then it is not possible for us to have the proper communication. Instead, what we do here is, right, we set up some standards here in both the ends. So if they are abide by these standards, then the communication between these two devices become easy. This is what is meant by setting up the standards or the protocols. Likely you have so many protocols with respect to the communication, and of course this PLC is also following one of such protocols, again under the heading of the OSI, right. So then when you come to the data link layer, you may have something else. When you come to the network layer, right, you may go into your Ethernet communication. What exactly we mean by Ethernet, or even you can in general call it as the internet communication. Then the higher layers may be precisely required for or depending upon what type of application you want to have, as long as the using of the PLC is concerned, right. So finally you may have in the application layer, you may have some file transfers and other things for the purpose of analysis of the data, right, for the purpose of interpretation of the data. You just try to bring in an industrial scenario, right, where you measure so many things, right. So then you gather or enrich those informations, then you transfer it to some network layer. So when you have got huge number of data, right, you may have to analyze these things somewhere at a remote end. So whenever this data goes to that layer, you may have to pass through the network layer, you may have to pass through the transportation layer, you may have to have the session layers, right, you may have the presentation layers. Finally it will go to the application layer, so where you will have to analyze the the type of the files, based on which you may have to take a suitable decision. Once the decision is taken, so that decision again should come back to your original system, maybe up to the physical layer. So in this way you have the system which is working in bidirection, right. It may go this way or it may come in this direction, right, and not necessary that you should always reach the application layer, right. So if your task is over here itself, you can always transfer it to the other system, which is the corresponding system here, and you can establish the connection between these two ends. So this is something like making use of the network standards or the protocols, as long as your PLC system is concerned, right. So the open system interconnection is one of the very important aspects whenever you speak about any communication, right. Your OSI model will come into picture. Maybe it is customized depending upon your requirement. In PLC, some of the things may be added, or some of the things may be excluded. You have nowadays the Internet of Things, right, IoT. There also you may have some of the things added or some of the things excluded, but the basic 7 layers what we have, they are the minimum requirement in order to understand how the data is communicated between two entities, right. So that is the reason why I made a mention about this the open system interconnection. Okay. So now we will see here, this is what we mean by the distributed system, again with the background or the reference of your open system interconnection, right. So now you can see in this diagram you have the IO devices. Okay, you have got IO devices which are connected to your PLC. This is basically a system which is working on the hierarchical principle, right, the distributed system. So whenever you speak about the hierarchy, definitely you may have to take into account all the the layers which are there in our communication paradigm. Okay. So you have got the input and output devices here which are connected to PLC, and now you have got some node here. You can see you have got some node, this is one node. Then it will go to your supervisory control, right, which we generally refer to it as SCADA, right, which we generally refer to it as the SCADA. So what exactly the SCADA does, all of you know, right, and finally it will go to a main system, which in our terminologies we call it as the plant computer, right. So now this happens to be one part of the system, Okay, this is one part of the system. And similarly, you may have such several systems connected to your plant computer, right? You have got IO devices here, then you have got the PLCs, the different PLCs, right? You have the supervisory control, then finally it goes to the plant computer. And in this system, you may have some robots, right? Not necessary that you have the input output processing done only through the PLC. You may have some robotic operations which again send their information to the supervisory system or your SCADA. You may take some data from the computers also if it is a different system. Like this, you may have the several systems here, right? And ultimately, right from your physical layer, you can see here we started from our physical layer. Okay, then we go to the enrichment of the data, consolidation of the data, which is the data link layer. Then we come to the network layer. You can see here the network layer, then your transportation layer, session, presentation and application. Not necessary that all these should be always present distinctly. They may be a part of the system, they may have been overlapped with each other depending upon the requirement, right? So now this OSI model, whatever I have here, right, that you can bring it to the diagram which is shown here. You can have your basic IO which is coming in your physical layer. Maybe the enrichment of the data and other things take place here itself, right? That may be your data link layer. Then it comes to the network layer here. You can see here it comes to network. You make use of either Ethernet or your wireless LAN, right? Or your personal area network, right? Or maybe your the LAN, right? The local area network and all, wherein you come to the network layer here, right? So once if you come to the network layer, then the remaining things till it reaches to your plant computer, right? So they may involve all this process, right? That is the transportation, session, presentation and application. So like this, you will have the hierarchical operations, right? Hierarchical operations even in our PLC system, which very much resembles the 7 layers which we have in our open system interconnection. Okay. So this is one thing as long as the distribution system is concerned in our PLC. You may have the distinct system connected to a plant computer, or which in our case, if you refer to your OSI system, it refers to the application. And based on the data which is read right from here, which may be your sensor, okay, it may be a sensor or something like that here, right, till it is going to your plant computer, right? Your CNC machines and all are the best example for these things, right? So finally, the plant computer is the one which has to take the decision, which has to analyze the data, which will nowadays you speak about the artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data analytics and all those things will come here in this block. But I don't think the PLCs do require that kind of accuracy, right? So basically they are meant for the industrial process control. Nevertheless, it is always possible for us to make use of the modern techniques like your machine learning or the artificial intelligence or the big data analytics and all, even in such systems which generally find their places in the application layer. Okay, this is how the things go as long as a distribution system is concerned, and also when we speak about how the layered approach can be conceived even in the PLC environment. Okay, now with these backgrounds, let us now quickly move on to one more aspect wherein you have something called as IO addressing, right? Now we have seen about the IO processing. Now the next thing is that the IO addressing, that means input, output, addressing. So what do you mean by IO addressing, right? How do you understand the meaning of IO addressing, right? When you have connected several devices in your PLC systems, okay, when you have connected several devices in your PLC system, maybe this is one your PLC, okay, you have got your input modules here, right, which are connected to your PLC here, right? So you may have several inputs which are connected here. So now once the PLC does the processing and all, you will have these outputs in the output modules. Okay, we have the output modules here. Then these output modules are connected to your output devices. All these things we have very categorically understood. So now this is your basic PLC system here, right? So this is the input module and this is your output module. So here you have got the input devices and here you have got the output devices. This is how the things generally look like as long as a typical PLC environment is concerned, right? So now when I speak about what you call as I/O addressing, how it is possible for us to recognize or identify a specific type of the input device or output devices when you have got so many input and output devices connected in a system, right? Now see, when you want to connect an input device, how exactly an input device is recognized, that all depends upon the nomenclatures, right, that are followed by different manufacturers. That is the reason why in your syllabus also I have made a mention there. You must have observed that all the programming techniques shall be discussed based on the Mitsubishi configuration, right? So you have different manufacturers, right? You have got Siemens, Fujitsu, Mitsubishi, Allen Bradley, right? And so many, right? Your Texas Instruments. So different manufacturers manufacture different PLCs. Each manufacturer has got its own way of identifying the input and output devices, and accordingly your programming techniques also will slightly vary as long as the identification of the input and output devices is concerned, right? So therefore Allen Bradley, I have already made a mention about the Allen Bradley, which is the pioneer in this particular case as long as the PLC manufacturing is concerned, right? We have got some kind of system in your Allen Bradley, right? I just write here. So now if I have got an input device, it is always identified by a letter X followed by say some number. Now let us say I have written as X400, right? X stands for the input device, 400 stands for it is the input device name. Now you may have something called as X401, X402, so on and so forth, depending upon how many different input devices are connected. So this is one way of identifying the input devices as long as the Allen Bradley configuration is concerned, right? So now you may have Y400, you may have Y401, Y402. Even in Mitsubishi also a similar configuration is used here, right? In fact, it is for the Mitsubishi. I am not very sure whether it is for the Allen Bradley or not. Anyway, I will tell you. So for Mitsubishi, okay, for Mitsubishi, this is how the input and output devices are going to be identified. And if I start discussing about the way in which the different input and output devices are identified for different manufacturers, that will definitely take you to the confusion. So that is the reason why one particular standard we will have, and according to that standard we will write the programs also in the ladder programming and all, right? So now when I speak about the Mitsubishi the nomenclature, an input device is identified by a letter X, right? And the device name always starts from 400, 401, 402, 403 and 40N, depending upon how many input devices are connected. Like that, the output devices are always identified by the letter Y, right? And again, your output devices can be definitely identified by the same name as the input device, but you differentiate between the input and output by virtue of the two letters X and Y, right. So 400 stands for the IO devices. Now you may have something else which we have not yet touched upon, right. We have got the master control relays, right, the timers, the counters, shift registers and all. So when a specific type of things come, then definitely we will have the different nomenclatures for the other things. For the time being, let us confine our discussion on how the input and output devices are identified in your Mitsubishi configuration. Okay, like that you have got the Siemens, you have got the Allen Bradley. Allen Bradley is different. In fact, this is for the Mitsubishi only. The Allen Bradley is different. So now whatever I have shown you here, right, one thing I have shown you that how the IO is processed, the input and output is processed, how exactly your open system interconnection and other things will come into picture, and followed by that how your input and output devices are recognized or identified, right. So now probably this completes the basic introduction about the PLC system, right, how exactly you can start the programming techniques with these backgrounds, right. So whatever is required for you to understand the backgrounds, right, so that we can start the programming I have given. I will quickly go back with a brief review of whatever we have done so far, right. Somewhere here we started, if you see these things properly, we started from what exactly are the controllers and how do you give the controllers the automatic features. Then we started with the definition of the programmable logic controllers, right. So what exactly are the programmable logic controllers, how do you define them, that we started. Then we discussed about some of the inherent advantages of the programmable logic controllers. Then some of the small limitations also we made mention. Then we have seen how exactly you can see the hardware of the programmable logic controller. Then after that we have seen the architectural point of view of the PLC, right, how exactly the bus system is seen there, what do you mean by the input modules, output modules, why the buffers and latches are required, right, what do you mean by the opto isolation, all those things we have seen, what are the different types of the buses that you use in the PLC system, that also we have seen. Then in that we have seen whenever you want to have the communication of the PLC modules which are distantly located, how your basic communication model looks like, that also we have seen, right. After having seen that, we have seen the internal architecture of the PLC, right, how the different things are arranged there. Then when you connect the input and output devices to PLC, we have seen what exactly we mean by the sourcing, what exactly we mean by the syncing, how the sourcing and syncing is significant when you connect your input and output devices to your PLC system. Then the way in which the programming is done in your PLC system, the handheld instruments, the desktop consoles or the personal computers, these things also we have seen. Later we saw some of the pics of the PLCs wherein we have seen the categories or the classifications of the PLCs like micro, mini and rack type, how your rack type is different from your micro and mini, that also we have seen. What are the advantages of going for the rack type, that also we have seen. You can insert your IO modules in the different slots depending upon the maximum number of IO slots that are provided in a rack, but which is not featured in your mini or micro, you will have to go with the manufacturer's specification, right. Then we have seen the different type of the input and output devices, right, the input output devices. Then we have seen the sensors, the type of the sensors, the desirable properties of the sensors, right. Then we have seen the mechanical switches, proximity switches, then the photoelectric sensors and switches, right. Then your position and displacement sensors, right, followed by the strain gauges and other things. Then we have seen the different types of the output devices, relay type, then we have seen the transistor type, then we have seen the next one as the triac type. Then what are the different type of the input and output, the output devices that you can connect in your PLC system: relays, directional control valves, motors, as well as the stepper motors. And I have given you some diagrams related to the direction control valves and all, followed by which we started our discussion on the I/O processing, right? How exactly the I/O processing is done, then the remote connections, your serial and parallel communication standards, the type of the network that you use, right? Then the distribution system or the distributed system which you use in your PLC scenario. Okay, so this is what is the brief introduction to this particular course. Maybe if you look at your course content there, right? I don't have here right now. So if you look at the course content, maybe it is for about 6 to 7 hours. I don't remember properly, but most of these things are repetitive. But from the point of view of examination, all these things can be kept at the back of your mind. Now, with these backgrounds, let us move on to the programming techniques that you use in your PLC scenario. Okay. Now. See, whenever I speak about the programming, okay, whenever I speak about the programming, generally, most of you are very much familiar with the different programming techniques. You have some high level language, right? You have something called as assembly level language, right? Now, probably if you have already worked with your C programming, or if you have already worked with your the microcontrollers, these things are quite easily understandable. What exactly we mean by the high level language, right? What exactly we mean by assembly level language? What do you mean by the assembler, right? What do you mean by interpreter, right? So what do you mean by compiler? So all these informations you have, right? So basically when we write the program in assembly or which we call it as mnemonics, right? So mnemonics are the words which look like an English letter, but they do not exactly resemble the English letter, right? So just for the purpose of the understanding of the user, we make use of the mnemonics. For example, load, LD, right? STA, store, something like that, right? So I'm not going into that detail. But when you go to your high level language, C programming and all, right? You write the program as per the library or as per the the syntax. Then you convert them into the machine code, right? Then finally, once they are converted into machine codes, being a user, you will not be able to know that. Your machine interprets that, and finally it will give the output as per the input which you have provided, right? Why I am telling all these things is when you speak about the high level language, C program or any other language, right? Generally it goes with the expertise of the user, right? So if you are very well versed with your programming techniques, then it is possible for you to easily deliver a particular task by writing a suitable program, right? And your mnemonics are slightly lower version compared to that, right? Need not be very precise as you do in the case of your C programming and other type of high level programming, right? But in the mnemonics, you may not require that expertise to understand the things as compared to the cases in the high level language, right? But as long as your PLC is concerned, right? Why I am taking this is, as long as your PLC is concerned, basically we have something called, right, which doesn't even fall in this category, right, which nor it falls in this particular category, right? So we have something called as the ladder programming, right? So ladder programming, right? So what do you mean by ladder programming? What other types of the programming strategies that you have in your PLCs? Who defines all these things, and how do you write these ladder programs? That we have to see now. Basically, the programming of the PLC is different for different manufacturer. That is the reason why I have told you in the beginning itself that we will be following one methodology, that is the Mitsubishi configuration, right? We will be following only one methodology, that is the Mitsubishi configuration, right? So again, all the PLC manufacturers must be abide by certain standards which is as per your IEC 1331-3, International Electrotechnical Commission. So which defines the protocols or the standards as long as the PLC programming is concerned, right? So now whatever the different types of the programmings that you have in your PLC, they are all as per this IEC 1331-3 specification, and these programmings are, one is called as the ladder diagrams, then you have something called as the instruction list, then you have the sequential function charts, SFCs, then you have something called as structured text, then you have something called as the functional block diagrams, right? So now all these, maybe your SFCs or your functional block diagrams, they are pictorial representation of the programming, right? But in all the cases, either we will be using the ladder programming, or we will be using the instruction list, or we will be using the structured text. But the ladder programming is so popular and so simple that you can use this program without having much of the backgrounds of the programming. If you know some basic diagrams of the power connectivity, the switches, the loads, the power flow, if you have those ideas, then definitely it is possible for you to make use of the ladder diagrams in order to write the PLC programs, right? So all these things we will see one by one, but we will begin our discussion on the programming by starting from the ladder diagrams, right? So today I think this much is sufficient for us to discuss. In our next presentation we will see how exactly the ladder diagrams can be drawn with simple illustrations. Later we will go with the complex